correctly, it was called colonial amnesia or selective memory. With respect to the history that we share, there's 250 years of continuous and unbroken Danish history on our shores, much of which the majority of the people of Denmark know absolutely nothing about. And so to engage in these important discussions and to seek to resolve the issues that exist between us without knowing the history is pretty challenging for most Danes.
Mm-hmm. But what is at the heart of the interest of the people at the Virgin Islands? What do they want?
Well, you must understand that their humanity has been impaired. And politically speaking, there are a number of issues that stem from the sale of the Danish West Indies and its people to the United States of America. For example, the people of the Virgin Islands were stateless for 10 years after the sale. There were no rights and privileges, absolutely none, guaranteed to the people of the Danish West Indies during that sale. As a result, we don't vote for president. As a result, our delegate to the U.S. Congress has no vote in the U.S. Congress. We are taxed without representation. Our young men and women are sent into war by the U.S. president, but yet they still have no vote. We have no representation at the United Nations. These are all issues that stem from that sale. And you must understand that this is a people that on July 3rd, 1848, in one of the most recognized expressions of their self-determination, took the matter of their emancipation into their own hands, making themselves free. How then, may I ask you, was it legal? Was it acceptable? Was it right? Was it moral to sell a people generations later that had made themselves free?
Mm-hmm. But what did they want at that point? 100 years ago, would you have preferred to become independent, or would the majority of the population actually be happy about American citizenship?
Certainly, I didn't live 100 years ago, but you must understand that there was no consultation. And so there is no way for us to know what was desired at the time. Had the Danish government consulted their subjects, the former enslaved people, we might have decided that, hey, look, we want to go back to Africa, or no, we want to stay here and remain independent, or we're okay with being sold to the United States of America, which I don't think would have been a preferred option given the fact that in 1917, what was America like? There had been no Brown versus the Board of Education, no integration in education. There was still Jim Crow segregation laws in the South, no Civil Rights Act. We could not vote in their elections. So that is the America that we were sold to.
But you referred to some problems that stem from the sale of the islands to the U.S. But what can Denmark do about that today? Because that's very much related to the relationship you have to the U.S.
But
Denmark play a role in that?
It is also a direct result of what most see as an illegal sale. You have to understand.
But what can the Danish government do about it today?
Well, we need to sit squarely at the table and put these things on the table for negotiation. A treaty was nothing but Danish officials and U.S. officials, men sitting at the table and making policy. That is the same thing. Had we been consulted and been brought to the table, I'm sure that we would have made provisions for ourselves.
But you can't rewrite history, and that
we
was
cannot,
what happened.
but we can redress and we can revisit these issues now in the 21st century between these three parties.
But what do you want from the Danish government? I mean, because clearly there's a question of being more open to the history, maybe having more museums, more focus on the history itself. But what more do you expect from the Danish government? Because I mean, reparations is on the agenda, but how do you? Which kind of reparations do you see?
I'll give you an example of a reparations initiative. You know, we signed a memorandum of understanding back in 2005 between ACRRA and the Danish Institute for Human Rights, and we laid out what reparations might look like between our two peoples. We agreed that we would pursue reparations through three prisms, through education, through restoration, and through reconciliation. A most preferred reparations initiative would be that graduates from Virgin Islands public schools, high schools, would be afforded the same opportunity and access to college and university education here in Denmark.
Even though they don't have Danish citizenship.
Even though they don't have Danish citizenship, because our people have paid the ultimate price. We have given blood, we have given sweat, we have given tears for 175 years, and concurrently 250 years of colonization. And so that sacrifice has been made. That contribution has historically been made. The people of the Virgin Islands, or the people formerly of the Danish West Indies, are in fact the primary creditors to the modern state of Denmark. Mm-hmm. And so this takes nothing more than negotiation and talks at the table, and this can be worked out.
So free education or free access to universities from youngsters coming from the Virgin Islands. But what else do you have in mind?
I wouldn't term it as free, given that that investment historically has already been made. But to answer your question, additional reparations initiatives might be help with our energy crisis and our energy infrastructure. We pay the highest cost per kilowatt under the U.S. flag, when at one particular time, the Danish West Indies was an energy superpower. Mm-hmm. Every plantation and estate had multiple windmills.
But what has that got to do with Denmark of today? Because it seems like a very concrete
Denmark is a leader today in sustainable and renewable energy. Mm-hmm. And so certainly we would look to Denmark for assistance and technology in this area. Why go to another country when we have 250 years of shared history?